Welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation. I'm your host, Paul Barron. And you know, one of the things that I like to do here on the show is, and I get a lot of requests for this, is really to break down some of the success stories of the industry, but also some of the stories that now are facing challenges. And the way that I do that is through one of our brand analysis models. Essentially, to kind of give you an idea, what I do with this is I dive into some of our FoodableLabs data that essentially gives us some consumer feedback on how restaurant brands are doing. And today's topic is going to be Sweetgreen. As you guys know, they are probably one of the top 5 in fast casual over the past decade. In fact, they made our top 100, I think hit our #1 list in 2018 in our fast casual top 100 innovators. So this brand has been around, and it's, you know, we got a chance to interview them very early on. I'll leave a link in the show notes to that video where you can actually see our interview with Nick Jamay when we interviewed them in DC. That, of course, is where the brand is driven from. Before we get started, I want to kind of jump to a little bit about our fast casual global event, not only the event, but also the alliance and how this is working. If you go to fastcasualglobal.com, you'll get a chance to find out a lot more about how this organization is going. Currently, we have over 800 brands in this organization and almost 8,000 members. We've been growing this for quite some time, for almost a decade. And what I've tried to do with this coordination is put together both what was at one time the Fast Casual Alliance that I started back in mid-2000s. We eventually merged that with the NRA. This is more of a global approach, and it's also going to stay very operator rich. So if you do try to join it, whether you're doing it on our LinkedIn group, just Fast Casual Global, if you're not an operator, I'm sorry, but we can't, I just am not approving those as part of the membership. It is an operator-only member group. We do have programs, of course, for suppliers and to get involved. Part of that is through our Fast Casual Global event, which is coming up soon. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes as well, so you can register. If you're an operator, you can actually register for free. Doesn't cost you anything. If you are a supplier that's trying to reach the fast casual industry, send us some information. You can shoot us an email to just producer@foodabletv.com. That's the best way to reach me. And we're happy to talk with you about how maybe you can get involved. But the main goal is to really kind of forward the entire fast casual industry from a global standpoint. Let's jump in to Sweetgreen's analysis. And what I want to get into is kind of their wins and losses for the past couple of years. And if you look at this data, or just these points, there are some real things starting to happen with Sweetgreen that's very, very interesting. And I think it can put this brand at a bit of a risk. As you can see, they've opted for drive-through for their suburban location development. I'll get into that more. They're also offering some new menu options. This brand has been primarily a salad-based chain that has been very, very plant-forward for pretty much their entire existence. And their whole approach toward marketing to the consumer is really geared toward that. And I think that has been a big win for them over the past few years. But some other things is their digital-forward brand positioning. This is one of the few brands, there's only a handful in fast casual who really get it from a digital marketing standpoint. And they have been able to really entice consumers to spend a lot of money in their restaurant businesses over the past few years. And I think part of that is because of their digital connection to their consumers. Now, here's the thing, and I'll talk about this, is that digital connection to a consumer, when you have an almost Apple-esque type retail store, and if you haven't seen a Sweetgreen's, you need to go visit one when you can, because they're architectural marvels. They're beautiful stores. They're absolutely stunning. When you go in there, your cool factor just raises like 10 points. I mean, it's just one of those kinds of brands that is able to transmit just an awe about it. And part of that is the design, the food, the environment, the ambiance. It all works. The challenge that this brand has is that is the least of our issue right now. Eventually we'll get back to that, but for today, and possibly for all of 2021, we may not see those kinds of foot traffic numbers for quite some time. And they are a queue model, just like Chipotle. And when I say a queue model, meaning it's got people in a line that now is going to have to stretch out much further than it ever has before, and that presents its own challenge and its own right. But here's the big deal, and that is when you lose that showcase storefront, and you can't really connect with those consumers as much anymore, it starts to decay the brand connectivity and loyalty, and I'll talk about that in some of my analysis. I'll jump back here to my wins and losses for them. So that's the main thing. The core customers are staying very loyal to the brand, but we do and are seeing some slides in. Now let's talk about their losses. Declining sales. This was a big one because this led to massive layoffs this year, and the end of, I shouldn't say this year, in 2020. The end of 2020, they really had some massive layoffs. They are also slowing store growth. I think all fast casuals are in that. But the other one is urban. Urban has been the hardest hit, and it's probably one of the key factors in terms of their profitability of their stores and where they exist. The top stores are in DC, New York, Philly. All of the urban markets that have really high density obviously are being hit dramatically, and of course this chain is in the hunt when it comes to urban locations. So their expansion to suburban may have been a bit late. The other thing is lack of unit experience in terms of driving customers, lack of unit experience driving customers elsewhere. And what I mean by that is their system is, as I just mentioned earlier, is connect with the consumer in the unit. The experiential starts to drive the interest, then start to hit them with digital and start to create a loyalty mechanism to bring them back in for loyalty back into the store. All of that's been kind of broken down for the entire restaurant industry, but when you have a brand like Chipotle, this is a problem. The other thing is limited takeout sales. So they had been a very strong brand on, takeout though, and digital was a presence for them. It wasn't one of the greater aspects of their product mix and their sales mix. And that in itself, I think, though they they do have a very good digital presence, I think the long term was that whole customer experience just didn't really go in that direction, where some brands were starting to lift above the 15% margin or 15% numbers in 2019 in terms of takeout sales, and very few of those companies are there, and Sweetgreen was not one of them. The other thing is there's no alternative menu items that are really expanding, and that I think is going to be a challenge, because in this day and age, you're going to have very unique menu items that are good for carry-out, takeout, and are good for delivery, and you're going to have some expansion in your menu offerings to be able to do that. I think they were a little late to the game on doing so, and it's starting to show in the brand. Let's jump to the consumer sentiment for this brand, and this is the one slide that I think it tells the most tale. Brand sentiment and food sentiment. This has been sliding since last June. And we have not seen slides like this with Sweetgreen in the literally since we've been tracking them for almost a decade. In terms of brand sentiment, because the brand exists in the physical footprint, they always had that ability to reinforce that brand connectivity and create that viral nature that consumers would have, whether it was on Instagram or things of that nature. That was an affinity that created a great brand sentiment number, and this is the first time we've seen this number starting to decline from June 20 from a 91.2 all the way down to December 2020 in the 86.1 number. The other thing that is flowing into that is food. Now, this one is very surprising to me because food is the central it's the central benefit of what Sweetgreen brings to you as a consumer. And for them to see, or for us to see a slide in their food sentiment, makes me think that maybe there's some connectivity to how this food is served, the experience of being able to select your salad, build it, create these unbelievable, beautiful looking entrees, and then experiencing that salad or that entree in the store. Maybe that's where it's coming from. I can't imagine. And also, I think a lot of people and brands have taken some food sentiment hits this year because it's difficult for food to travel and stay on point in terms of quality unless you have really put a lot of thought into how that's going to happen and being able to make it happen all the way to the consumer's home or to their business. So I think that's going to be a factor in their food sentiment. My concern will be if this continues to slide, they get back into the ranks of fast casuals that are in the mid 80s to low 80s in terms of brand sentiment, which is actually a high score, just to be clear here. That's a very high score. However, we do see a few breakout brands that break the 90s, and it's rare, but it does happen. And Sweetgreen had been one of those that had been holding very strong in the 90s for many quarters and actually many years. I think maybe the last time we saw them in the 80s was around 2016, 17. So this is a big shift, and I'm curious as to how this brand is going to be able to deal with this. And I'll go through some news items here before we end up. But I want to jump to my next slide, which is brand loyalty. Now, brand loyalty is a bit different. Brand loyalty is when you look at people who are mentioning Sweetgreen and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna start to experience other items, etc." That has been a consistent theme for Sweetgreen for quite some time. They've had the brand loyalists who have been very solid with their business, and I think they are continuing to show brand loyalty, but we are starting to see some chinks in that armor. And what I mean by that is this kind of up and down number when you look at 94.7 in June to a 90.8 in October and a 98 in November, and then dropping off the cliff to an 89 in December. It's a little bit erratic here, and I think there are some situations that are causing this. Of course, now discovery is another factor, and what we mean by discovery is how many people are trying Sweetgreen for the first time or for maybe their second or third time, but they're starting to use them. We started to see this fall off also here in the chart from 63.2 all the way down to a 51.7 rating in December. So this is a decline in discoverability of people who are basically, maybe they went to the store, they said, "Oh, this is amazing, it was the first time I tried it," and then they continue and they become a brand loyalist. That kind of engagement is not happening as much because Sweetgreen is essentially now in the ranks of every other fast casual brand who has to win through takeout, delivery, and a different kind of experience. So that in itself, I think, is going to have some challenges. We want to watch this very closely. CNBC reported on Sweetgreen recently going with a pilot drive-in, I think, or drive-through. I think this is a good move for the brand. It's a little unusual because drive-through is, listen, it's its own animal. It is a very unique aspect, and I do believe that some fast casuals are going to reinvent drive-through and how it should be done. But I think this is going to be a challenge. I think we are going to see a lot of fast casual companies. There's some links there that you see where we kind of have seen a flood of restaurant companies moving to unveiling these new floor plans and prototypes with drive-ins, and I think that this will not slow down. We are going to continue to see this moving very aggressively, and the question will be whether or not Sweetgreen can hold its own against other drive-through chains. Here's the thing. Fast casual in itself, I don't know if it lends itself to drive-through. It does lend itself to curbside because drive-through is an experience that has to stay under the minute to minute 30-second range. I mean, if you look at the pros, Taco Bell, McDonald's, and even Burger King and Wendy's, I mean, these guys, this is a science. Chick-fil-A, they're another science. I mean, these things are absolute optimal speed. Fast casual does not have that ability unless you're changing the model in itself completely. And when you change that model completely, you start to change the value proposition because you're changing the food. So there's a lot to unwrap when you build a drive-in, and I think, or a drive-through, or even these new drive-in aspects. There's a lot to unwrap there, and I think the brands that do it right are going to need some help in really kind of making that next level step. The other thing I wanted to talk on was Forbes coverage right here. Sweetgreen new salad interpretation of the crispy chicken sandwich is only available via its app. Now, this is a great tactic of creating pent-up demand. Listen, Popeyes has been, the king of this, and of course, being in the chicken industry, they kind of own that market. But there are some good products out there in the chicken space. You're going after, in my opinion, with this move, the Chick-fil-A customer. The Chick-fil-A customer is so loyal and almost undented, and we're gonna be doing a Chick-fil-A brand analysis right here on Fast Casual Nation, though it is a QSR brand. But I want you guys to see how Chick-fil-A has done some very unique things to maintain and increase their market share in the QSR space. Back to Sweetgreen on this. With adding in the sandwich or the chicken salad, I think this is a good move for them. The question is the competitive space in the market is a tough one, and you're entering a big game there. And I think they'll win because they have brand loyalists there that will probably take this menu item unless they're vegan. But the point being is that I do think that they have started the process of expanding their menu, and I think that's a good thing. The question is I don't know if that was the perfect product to select to go out and start really moving into its brand expansion. The last thing, and this is kind of the scenario that I think a lot of brands are dealing with today. QSR reported recently, this big move, which was really their corporate staff by 20% due to COVID pressures. And Jonathan Neiman, who is their CEO, I mean, this to me is the corporate staff are typically the last of the groups to be laid off. Now, I understand, of course, they've had to lay off a lot of people, and almost every good restaurant operator has had to do that. It just is part of the industry and what we're facing today. But Sweetgreen, I felt, was bulletproof. Even in COVID, I felt that this brand was pretty much untouchable. I felt like they had a completely different position in the marketplace than most fast casual. What I am finding is that there are some chinks in the armor here, and that this brand is going to have to go through some struggles, like many fast casual concepts, in repositioning themselves for the future. And those are the things that we'll continue to report on here on Fast Casual Nation. I want to continue to break down. We look at a lot of consumer sentiment data. Brand loyalty is a big factor, and I think also discoverability now, because we are on such an even playing field, is going to be one to watch. Of course, I love to get your feedback. If you guys have some information or you'd love to talk about it on the show, make sure and send that to us to producer@foodabletv.com. You can also hit me up on Twitter @PaulBaron. And of course, here's the thing. When you're listening to this, whether you're over on the podcast or you're catching this over on YouTube, make sure and give us a thumbs up if you like the content on the video. Also subscribe, hit the bell, make sure and tag it to where you can actually get notifications. And then also over on the podcast apps, if you are checking us out over on Apple or Spotify, give us a rating. We love to have your feedback. And it's also how we learn what we can do better here on Fast Casual Nation. We will catch you next time with some more great stuff right here on Fast Casual Nation.